Welcome to the High Context Podcast.
Conversations about living a full spectrum life.
My name is Ace.
And I'm Darian.
And we are sitting down with folks who inspire us daily as we dive deep into a wide range of topics, from art, music, history, and science,
to culture, consciousness, and creativity.
All with a focus on the collective while tapping into the individual and our relationships and connections to each other.
We like to think global while we act local.
Get in touch by sending us an email, highcontextpodcast@gmail.com.
Or follow us on Instagram, where you can find some archived live videos of our recording sessions at High Context Podcast.
We hope you enjoy these reflections as much as we enjoyed sitting down for these dangerous yet important conversations.
We look forward to connecting with you soon.
All power to all the people. Welcome to High Context. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, Jelani Buchanan.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We've met, but in case someone's just tuning in for the first time, I'm Ace. I'm joined today with Jelani, and Darian is holding it down on just being clutch for production, also being a clutch co-host, and we're just moving and grooving. So Jelani has agreed to be a part of this team to help with editing and production, and I'm just super grateful that you're excited and wanting to jump on in like this. It's a really fresh energy, so thank you.
My pleasure. I am so pumped.
Yeah, I've been loving what we're hearing already for High Context, so I'm excited to see what comes out of this episode as well.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna jump right in with asking y'all, like, how did Darian and Jelani, how did you two meet?
Man.
Yeah. LBJ. That's the shortest answer. What that means, our buddy...
not the president.
Yes,
not
indeed.
The president.
Indeed. Our buddy LB, he introduced us years ago. At this point, about 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. And once he introduced us, it was kind of like a match made in St. Louis.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, it was great. But honestly, the momentum has just been kind of going up since then. But there's been so many things that have happened since then. But we met at Salt and Smoke.
Yeah, met at Salt and Smoke. The first time I remember seeing Jelani's face, I was at a open mic at Plush, which is now Zach, in St. Louis, Missouri, and y'all were just having a lot of fun. LB kind of more impressed on me, like, oh, maybe I should talk to this person, because at the time I was managing an artist named Lauren D, and shout out to Lauren.
Shout out.
And so I was like, oh, I should talk to him because he plays guitar. We're looking for a band for her, and like. Then we met up before that, and then he was like, oh, you should meet my friend Jelani that was running the open mic with me. And so we sat down, Salt and Smoke, and have been kicking it ever since.
Seriously, ever since.
What was that, 2000?
It was it was like 2011.
2011.
Because I was in California in 2009.
Okay. Cool.
For a short stint.
I know it was the beginning of the teens for the 2000s.
I gotcha. So it sounds like music production was just kind of at the forefront of the connection from the beginning. I don't think I knew that you played guitar.
Yeah, for sure.
LBJ does.
LB plays guitar. Yeah,
so,
that's why I was recruiting him.
Yeah, the open mic he mentioned, LBJ presents open mic at Plush. That's where me and LBJ put our efforts together for the St. Louis scene, and that was kind of our effort at the time to be one of the better open mics in St. Louis at the time. The best one at the time was Venice Cafe.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
And we were trying to compete with that, but on a Sunday instead of a Monday.
Okay, so different day. And then, like, when I think about open mic, I don't really think, like, good, better, best. So, like, what constitutes...
Just different.
What do you when you think, like, optimum open mic, what are the qualifications? Are we talking about star power? Are we talking about... people coming out to watch, or are we talking about how many people are signing up, or what are the metrics on that?
Yes, because in 2011 at the time, Facebook and things were a lot younger than now, and whenever that was happening, people were more involved in actually figuring out what events were doing.
Younger Facebook had very engaged in events. I felt like events were...
You could actually get invited and get people to go to things.
And if you had no idea what was going on, it was a good place to look. I mean, it still kind of is, but...
No, the algorithm, I think, throttles in a very different way now. Like, I used to hear about every single concert coming through on Facebook. That was like my concert calendar.
Yeah, exactly. So for us, what we decided to do at the time was, you know how St. Louis loves lists, right? There was a list at the time of best open mics.
Top 10 best this.
And that was a good way for us to find out as budding musicians where to go just to play, right? So we'd go, have open mics, and then eventually we all thought to ourselves, what if we had an open mic where it was free and we had a drum set, at least 2 guitars, a keyboard, and a microphone available for anyone who comes.
Backline.
And that's exactly what we as musicians wanted, and we weren't getting it. So we asked Plush.
To pretty much bring everything that you want to perform,
And we were already playing instruments constantly, so we just brought kind of our setup to Plush, and it was a hit, and we did not realize how successful it would be until people started signing up every Sunday, and it was booked. So we only had signups for a long time because, you know, people would wait till the last minute and think it's just like, you know, you come and sign up, which you could, but it wasn't guaranteed. So it was a great time.
Right. Wow. So at the time, Darian, you're working on production and helping produce for someone, and then it sounds like, Jelani, you were more of a gun for hire on the music performance end, or were you also dipping into production at that time as well?
Yes, indeed. In fact, I met LBJ because after I met him at Tin Can in the Morgan Ford District in St. Louis years ago, which is not there anymore, he wanted to do music production with me. So he came back to our studio. We got to know each other. He mentioned the open mic.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you guys rendezvous at the open mic and then have like a sit down at Salt and Smoke. And give me a few tidbits of what you remember from like first impressions or like first conversations, first memories.
Yeah. I just remember you having really high energy.
Damn, the stamina, because he still has really high energy.
Yeah, for real.
I don't know what to say. It's his furnace.
Who he is, yeah.
No, it's good.
Yeah, just like being like, oh, I would like to be friends with this dude, even outside of just like making music. And so I don't even remember if I got your number back then because I wasn't that great at networking, but like we just continued to go to the open mic, and then we would kick it with you and Dan afterwards at the apartment.
What a time,
and then man, I still got some of those videos.
Me too. I can't wait to put them out.
But yeah, it was just
a
magical, for real, magical experience afterwards. The open mics were cool, and that was always fun too. But like just a room full of musicians like jamming and just like joking around afterwards was a crazy good time.
Crammed into a small apartment, mind you. Like, I'm not even hyperbolizing because we're right up the street from Courtesy Diner at this point, which is now gone.
Yeah.
It's wild. So much stuff. I sound like that one song, Fair Dies, put up a buck. Anyway, it was a great time, man.
Yeah.
That was your best.
That was my impression. High energy, like good people person, because you were kind of the glue for that time. I think Dan was very much focused on what he was trying to do musically and like with his career, but you were just like, I want to connect with as many musicians and creative people as possible, and like then something dope will come out of that. And I think that approach also was like my approach with it, and so yeah, we just kind of connected on that piece, I believe.
That's what's up, man.
I feel like, I don't know how it was from your end.
Sure, my end, it was really great because the night we met, we ended up at Salt and Smoke. It was packed inside, and LBJ, very much like Darian, is somebody who I trust. You know, if he's gonna say, I want to introduce you to someone, I'm gonna say okay, you know, and that's led me to this. So I mean, I'm not as much of a yes man as I used to be, but at the time, it really helped me to get out into the scene, having people, you know, introduced me to folks. So, but the first impression I got from Darian is that he was very motivated to get Lauren, some play around St. Louis, and like he seemed very, very much enthusiastic as well about meeting because I felt like he immediately had the same energy with LBJ with like, oh, cool, he's introducing me to somebody who's worth meeting. So first impressions were definitely, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm very much an open-minded person when it comes to things I don't know. Like I try not to put a lot of or hinge a lot of expectation on things that I can't control just for my own peace. So
I got you.
I was open, and I'm glad I was because he ended up being a dope dude.
Dope. So when it comes to your music origins, what is your earliest memory with music?
Oh, man. Yeah. That's a good question. Earliest memories of music are my siblings singing around the house, honestly. I've got 4 older siblings on my mom's side, very musically inclined, and most of them are vocalists. So it was a lot of pressure for me I was the youngest too. So they were all singing. Holidays, they'd sing together. Like, it's wild. And I mean, there was only a point where I was getting in my high school phase where I was like, I guess I am one of the only ones that don't sing very much, but I'm very much musically in tune. Like if I hear something that I like, I'm gravitated towards it. So
okay. So what's like the first, if it wasn't vocals, like what was the first instrument that you picked up, or like your first experience through like starting to learn or go down that path for yourself?
Trumpet.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was middle school.
That's where I started too.
Yeah. And it's cool because there's a whole story about middle school and how me and Darian connect. His mother was my teacher.
Okay.
So that's pretty neat. But in 6th grade at the same
Which
school.
we didn't find out till way more recently.
Exactly. So it's kind of, that's another wild part.
The science teacher, right?
Yes. So whenever I was going to this school at the time, McKinley CJA, it was a middle school at the time. There was a band, and I picked up trumpet, mostly because it was probably one of the, abundant instruments they had, because the ones that people wanted, like I wanted to do saxophone, but then everybody does, so
okay.
High commodity. So I did trumpet. I'm glad I did though, because it was my introduction into actually asserting myself to learn an instrument. Before, I was just enthusiastic about it. I'd like fiddle around on a keyboard here and there or whatever, but I wasn't like, oh, I want to play piano. Trumpet, I definitely got excited about it. So I loved being able to manipulate the sounds and stuff like that. Kind of got high off of that, but I did not learn how to read music. So,
oh really?
Very Nick Cannon drumline. That's like when that movie came out, I was like, I relate to that so much. Yeah. So I was first trumpet, and it's really cool, but there were 2 other first trumpets as well. And one of the other 2 first trumpets were actually, fast forward to recently, we're taking a course on how to do sync licensing from that person.
Oh, fun.
So
that's cool.
And that person also was taught by Darian's mom. Like there's a lot of wild stuff. So
Okay.
She connects me to a lot of St. Louis.
That's very cool.
I've met a lot of new friends that were like, wait, Wig Fall? Was your mom a teacher? And then it just goes on like that.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Wig Fall name runs deep.
So you picked up trumpet. When did you start like producing and like making beats and like full-on tracks and stuff?
Good question. Middle school.
Okay.
It was 8th grade. So like 6th grade, I learned trumpet. 7th grade, I still played trumpet. 8th grade, I'm not playing trumpet as much, but I go over to one of my buddies' houses in middle school for a party where we're playing, Xbox and drinking Mountain Dew and eating Doritos. And he happens to have a PC, like a lot of, households were starting to become to have, And once I got to his house, everybody was playing games and eating Cheetos and all this. And I was just like, oh, cool, you got a music making software on this computer. And I was just glued to it. Like, it was Sony Acid Pro.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Acid Pro Studios. And
Acid Pro.
it was just loops. So I just take the loops that are in
free
there.
software.
Yes. And, put them together and be like, oh, there's a bunch of loops. What is this? Oh, you can put these together, So that was my first time doing music production. And since then, I've kind of like had a very hard time staying away from it.
Okay, that's really cool. Yeah. So when did both of you guys develop this producer relationship where you guys are working together on music production?
Man, that's a good question. It's kind of a long and very slow building thing.
Yeah. I think the first times, though, were whenever we were trying to produce tracks together with LD. Lauren D.
Yeah.
So y'all would come to the studio sometimes, and then eventually I had a meeting with you about my 3-year plan, but that also happened to be the same day that my beats were being shopped to be a part of Farfetched. So that was around the time he and I started ramping up our collaboration, but until then, it was kind of like, let's hang out. LD's doing this thing. He was managing Lauren D. So he was trying to connect us and get, production for Lauren D. and this and that. I was a producer at the time for my band, the Psychedelic Psychonauts. And with Daniel James Drake, he now does Anthromancer stuff. But when we were producing in our studio at the house, 7 houses up from Courtesy, Lauren D. would come over. We produced some tracks together. And in fact, we got some connections from Lauren D. to do other tracks later. So that was some of our earlier collaborations. And then eventually most of the effort was towards Farfetched. The shared effort was towards Farfetched, the collective, which was various things. Video production, music production, all kinds of things.
Okay, so would you say that's maybe where you started into the AV stuff, or was AV coming around for you the same time as music production?
Yes, because whenever I started to do music, we eventually were like, it'd be cool if we could put our music on YouTube and have a video that goes with it, right? So we've made a few Psych Squared music videos in early 2010s, and they're you could tell I was using Windows Movie Maker. Like, it was very much easy to tell that I was just throwing something up there. But that was a start, and eventually I was like, well, it's expensive to get really nice videos, so I'll just learn how to do it like I learned how to make music. It's expensive to get a producer, so learn how to become a producer. It's expensive to pay to play anywhere, so I'm not gonna do that, so let's do an open mic and get together with musicians who have bills, and then we can get together, so that was the earlier forms of me doing AV stuff to like outsource the price, really.
Sure. So I don't know, I'm kind of like absorbing everything.
Sure, yeah.
That's okay.
So what, so far this narrative that I'm hearing is that through connection with others, you were developing and honing in your skill. And so you and Darian had this rapport, and when the time was right, it sounds like you guys, went for it. So, tell me about Backbeat. Like, is this was this, when did it start? What does Backbeat mean to you?
Sure. So it started whenever Dan and I were starting our band, the Psychedelic Psychonauts. We were thinking of names for ourselves, monikers for each individual part. He was working at the diner and slinging pancakes, and people would call him Dr. Dan the Pancake Man. So at the time, we were just kind of introducing him as Dr. Dan. But then me and him sat down and was like, what would you like to be introduced as? And we shopped some names around, and we didn't go out with any until, we threw a bunch of things at the wall. And once Backbeat came up, the first thing I did in this time is, you come up with a good name you think is original, you Google it immediately, right? Because it can be taken. So
we know this lesson as well.
That's seriously just I overthink things.
I don't even do that. I just park the Instagram. I don't even search. I just park the Instagram handle.
Yeah, see? And hey, it happened. So
so you searched it.
Searched it.
Did it have like a different spelling when you searched it, or
I searched the original. I started with the original. That just had too many associations adjacent to music. So then I changed the spelling and I landed on BAQBEET. And frankly, the name itself is, beat in the background. Like in music reference, the backbeat is the beat that you kind of depend on, but it's kind of repetitive, and it was kind of introduced around, people sampling like James Brown stuff. Like that's, I think, when like
blues and funk.
Blues and funk, like the backbeat is.
It's like the offbeat, right? Or is it more of the beat that's after the offbeat? Like the 16th note before the 4 or before
Honestly,
the new measure?
I'm not entirely sure because I think it's more general than that.
Like a feel. It's like a feel.
We could totally do research. In fact, once
Webster Dictionary defines backbeat as
totally. So the way I kind of defined backbeat and settling with it at the time was my role in the scheme of us doing a band. I was kind of the person in the background while Dan was the one in the front. So, I kind of embraced that.
Sure.
And once I did that, I kind of also connected it to the fact that I love to make beats. I love talking about making beats, so it's kind of a fun way to introduce one of my passions in a neat way that strikes up conversation.
I definitely heard Wonderwall yesterday, and so that's what's in my head right now.
You're not the first person to remind me of that.
Okay, cool.
So I love that
so
too.
much.
It's a great song. In fact, I've thought a lot about sampling that somewhere. Okay. But I think it's just yet to happen.
That would be a fun, just like take out backbeat, the word is on the street.
According to emaster.com.
Okay.
A backbeat is any rhythm sound in music that puts emphasis on the second and fourth beats in a bar.
Okay.
Good
okay.
Call.
Okay. Yeah. I said 4. I was thinking 2. I just didn't say 2.
Listen,
2
I am
and 4. So like,
I'm honestly pretty thrilled that you have a background in percussion. That's one of those things I learned about you. I was actually really enthusiastic about because I have a lot to learn about, percussion in general. So
yeah, I never learned how to play drums. I never really figured out that cross hemispherical coordination. But I think since I've tried to learn drums, I've taken a lot of yoga, so I haven't like really picked it back up to see if maybe there's some different hardwiring now. Sure. But I actually got asked to play samba drums yesterday.
Really?
I was like, yes, just send me the sheet music.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
So we'll see how that turns out. It was like on a spur of the moment sort of thing, but I might perform tomorrow. I don't know.
But you read music though.
It's been a really long time. I guess short answer is yes. Long answer is I would have to really refresh before I sat down in front of a piano or something. But when it comes to percussion stuff, you're really just knowing what the rhythm is. I can do that. Yeah. So I can't say I've necessarily played samba drums specifically or samba music specifically, but
maybe be playing on the backbeat.
Music. Yeah. So and it was funny too because this happened in like a social setting and they're like, you do what now? You're a beekeeper, you've done percussion, like who are you? And I was like, I don't know. But like sometimes I say things and people are like, are you making that up right now? And I'm like, no. And they're like, you do so many things. I'm like, yeah, that's why I haven't specialized in anything. It's a issue.
It sounds super familiar.
Yeah. So
trades, master of some.
Yeah, just working on an ace in life or something. I don't know.
Master of juggling,
Ace in life. I like that.
So you are the only person who's really heard our episodes all the way through. So you already have your own kind of lexicon for what high context means. But, I think all of us have context for each other and for our place in the world and for what it means for our mission, what it means for our connections with others. And it seems like you've been for a while living like a really high context life, especially in your music pursuits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So since you've heard the episodes, like what does high context or what does low context mean to you?
Sure. Frankly, I've never even thought about it until I started editing this, but I'm familiar with the concepts. And now I suppose my understanding of high context is just the nuance of the fact that you can't assume the position of one by taking the sum of all and just, imposing that on an individual. So I learned that with music, and I've learned that with living in a city where half the people are jaded that live here and half the people are loving it. And it's like, it can't be a terrible or great place at the same time. I mean, or it can, that's the point of context, right?
Yeah.
So low context, and I didn't even think about low context either. So I'm very grateful. But what it means to me in my life is what I mentioned, the nuance of the individual.
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
the whole.
Yeah, exactly. And there was something in there. Sorry, I'm like catching up.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
I think, there are some that are jaded about living here. There are some who like it here and want it to stay the way it is. And then I think there's also a third group of people who are hopeful that there's something that can change it, either about St. Louis, about Missouri, about the United States, about the Western world, about the entire world that we live in.
Absolutely.
And I think like having hope is not an easy thing to have.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's not as easy as, say, pessimism or doubt.
I think it takes a lot of strength to have hope.
Yeah.
Pessimism is easy.
Yeah.
I think hope also comes in the absence of isolation. I think that's something that has really, I've been reminded of a lot in the past year or so.
Yeah.
That if we have a support system, not even a support system, but just those around us where we're open to new experiences and new ideas, then there's this exposure to, there's something else. Or there's others that think the same way I do. I'm not alone.
Yeah, I think it definitely, speaking of context, it definitely matters who's around you, because you could be surrounded by people and definitely not have hope. You know what I mean? There's desolate populations all over the planet. So, and reasons for those folks to not have hope, but
there's also the most pessimistic people in the most beautiful places.
That's also true. That's also true. So even in being surrounded by people, you could be pessimistic, or you could be isolated and have hope. I think hope is an internal thing that you have to tap into. It can definitely be elicited by other people and your response to other people, but I feel like it's definitely an internal thing that you got to tap into.
Agreed.
That we can all tap into, but you have to choose to do it.
Right. And some practices make it easier than others.
Yeah.
I think John Green was quoting someone else when he said it, but hope is the thing with feathers. Is a quote about it can come and go. It's like a bird. It will come and it will roost and it will go and it will travel. Yeah.
I wonder if that also extends to having cycles. Because, just as an animal, all animals, we all have cycles. Yeah.
I thought about that quote just now about just having a different point of view, a higher point of view. And
bird's eye.
Yeah, bird's eye. That's where I was thinking.
Yeah. I love that.
High context.
Yeah. On hope. Yeah. Oh, I like that.
So we've tapped into your duo origin story a little bit, but consider yourself Jelani, Backbeat, as a superhero. What's your origin story? And what's your superpower?
Back.
I was like, what's new? I always perceive myself that way. No. So
as you should.
Backbeat as a superhero. We rewind.
Yeah. Where does that start?
So as soon as I discovered enclothed cognition, I kind of associated that with
Can you expand on that?
Sure.
Yeah, I was about to ask. I have no idea what that means.
Fair enough. Enclothed cognition. I learned this concept on a podcast called You Are Not So Smart Podcast by David McCraney. It's a great book. But on the podcast, enclothed cognition was one of the topics. And the topic talked about how when superheroes put on a cape, you know, they're super even if they don't have one, but they need the superhero outfit to like hide their identity or like it has a function, right? Or in video games, you'll have buffs if you have a different piece of clothing that like changes your stats, right? So enclosed cognition for us, you know, in the real world or whatever, can come in the form of like Halloween costume or a work uniform or something that essentially empowers you, or a police uniform. It empowers you to like do more than you could if you didn't have those pieces of clothing on, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of
putting on a new hat.
Yeah.
Like either if I'm stepping into a role, you're wearing a different hat.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like Superman going into the booth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You put a microphone in front of y'all become radio hosts, you know? That type of thing.
Depends on
right?
the day.
Hey, sure. Hey, you know.
I'm working on it.
Totally.
We're getting back. Depends on the amount of caffeine.
Yeah. So a part of the origin on that is, you know, as a kid, I was very much aware that you can't do it alone. My mom was very much a treat people how you want to be treated person. So a lot of really good values were instilled in me, I feel like, as a kid. But then you couple that with like the product around you, and sometimes it doesn't match, right? But what you end up having to do is figure out a way to cope or manage or whatever you feel like you need to do to survive. So what that looked like for me was isolation. So I would be by myself a lot when my cousins would want to do certain things that I wouldn't want to do. I'm like, okay, well, I just hang back and play Legos or play with whatever random things are around the house, you know? So I'm pretty used to being like siloing myself and I'm easily entertained, but at the same time, like growing up and knowing like I can't do it alone, you know? So I feel like it's innate for me to want to be around people that are like-minded and motivate me, but it's not anyone else's responsibility to like take care of me. So I just go within and I kind of figure out, okay, what do I want? I would love to make music all the time. Okay, well, you need to justify that by being able to, you know, be a service to people and have it be a functional part of your being instead of being something that takes away from the rest of your being. So I kind of compartmentalized a lot of those things before graduating high school and deciding for myself that I didn't want to go to college because I was nervous about what comes with that, besides the hope that you get a proper education and have a set life, like the debt and the pressure and, you know, all of this other stuff that, you know, they force you into right when you're able to sign a contract.
Sure.
So sidestepping all of that, I kind of pivoted to, okay, now I'm just going to make a living off of what I feel like I'm able to provide for people. And at the time, I was really good at customer service and, I mean, tumbling as well, but I was a coach for a little bit then, but I was just passionate about making music and things like that and expressing myself artistically, as well as having like people like Dan in my life who motivated me to kind of pursue that too. So it was very easy for him and I to, you know, escape the whole, you need to do this from older people and just kind of go our own way. So since then, I've kind of just dedicated my time to making sure that I'm as good as I can possibly be at the things I'm passionate about. That way, when people want my help, I can be the best help possible.
Sure, yeah.
So that's kind of my superpower, Lou.
I'm hearing definitely like that origin of having that voluntary isolation meant that you're comfortable being by yourself and being alone with yourself. And I can't necessarily say that everyone has that same experience. Like myself as a self-proclaimed, like definitely extroverted person, and that has definitely been a struggle for me in the past for sure.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like finding myself in an isolating experience, even though I was surrounded by people, it felt, you know, feeling that way, that that like I learned to like be comfortable alone or be comfortable in that more introverted lifestyle. So that's an amazing base to have. Like,
Hey,
so
being
early
comfortable,
on, too.
being comfortable at first is I wouldn't describe it that way necessarily because I wasn't necessarily aware of how I was working on these things. It's just kind of like, it was more survival, right? It's like, I don't want to be sad, so what do I do to not be sad? A lot of the times that's follow the rules, but like once you do that and then you start thinking more about what the rules are, you're like, okay, well, I don't necessarily have to follow the rules to be happy. I could just find out what my happiness is and strive to that if I'm not harming anyone else, you know? That's kind of where I landed. And then, I just kind of go from there.
And then when it comes to this, okay, let me see. I forgot the phrase that you used.
Enclosed cognition?
Yes. So from there, using the enclosed cognition to say, I'm going to put on this hat for myself and for others. And whatever hat I'm going to put on, I'm going to make sure I've made that hat my bread and butter. I've made sure I've made that task something that I would want it to represent myself.
Exactly.
There's this, and I don't know where your like spiritual like history is or whatever, but one of the first quotes I ever memorized through Fellowship of Christian Athletes was, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as you're working for the Lord, like for the greater good, for your own personal drive, as you're working for the Lord and not for men, and not just for, the world or for society, but for your higher purpose. And I hear that. I hear that in your the mindset that you're going about your collaboration too. I'm hearing a little bit of like the 4 agreements as well. Always do your best.
I gotta read that book. It's on my list, but yeah, I heard it was a short read too.
It is a short read, yeah. I don't know if I've personally read it myself, but the 4 agreements are pretty easy, you know.
Yeah.
I think always do your best and be impeccable with your word are the, like, for me, I like those out of the 4. I like those the most because they're the positively worded ones. And then the other 2 are don't assume and don't take anything personal. So I like when it's positively worded. I feel like that makes a difference.
Resonates with you more.
Or
assume less.
Yes, there's definitely ways to rephrase the other 2, like refrain from assuming or refrain from taking something personal. Like it's not just about who you are, what you've done. They have their own experience too. They've gone through their own history to get to that point as well. Yeah.
High context again.
Yeah. That's another one. I think a big part of this is considering the context of not, like you were just saying, not just one person making the decision for many or many people making the decision for one, but recognizing the individual in the collective, and that there's more than just that present moment. There's that past, and also if we're really thinking like aliens or whatever, there's also the future. You know, there's that future context that we don't know the details of, but we may see some broad strokes of here and there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was thinking about it on the way over here, about our answers to some of the questions, and how when we are on this pathway, this mission of having a more high context experience, if that's what we choose, that oftentimes it also comes with this like connection to source. Yeah. So, I'm leading the witness a little bit here with this one, but what is in your life? What is something that has helped guide you to a more high context experience? Like to me, I'm hearing that you're already living in that way with your collaborations. What is a practice? What is something that you've found that helps you live a more high context life?
Giving folks grace, because a lot of the times we get angry at people for things that we do. So that makes us hypocrites, you know? And that to me is kind of one of my underlying go-tos when it comes to how do I approach this thing that this person is doing or whatever.
Where did you learn that? Was that from experience, or did that just like...
I think it's experience.
Yeah.
I mean, and also it's weird because being told over and over again by your parents anything will make you either believe what they're saying or think about what they're saying more, right? So if I'm constantly told you should treat people how you want to be treated, I immediately think if somebody does something that I don't like, I just think go against the instinct to do the same thing. Like, go against the instinct to just retaliate in the exact same way because it's usually negative. And
it's not how you wanted to be treated in the first place.
Exactly.
Right.
So if everybody thought that way, we'd have a lot less, strife, but that's what we call empathy, right? So I think that, like, wrapping that concept up in a word is kind of when I really started to lean into it. But before that, it was more like just treat people how you want to be treated.
Sure.
If you don't want anybody to steal anything from you, don't steal from people.
Right.
Or, it's not going to guarantee it's not going to happen, but that's not the point. The point is to treat people well, not to just get what you want, right?
Right.
Even though being treated well is what we all wish to have, but we're not all willing to do that for
other people.
I think it also, like, if in recent years we've kind of delineated, like, being treated well means something different to each person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so there's been, you've outlined the golden rule and treat others the way you want to be treated. There's also, like, that platinum rule of treat others the way they want to be treated.
That too, absolutely.
Like, that like, gratefully we all have our functional legs and we can see, and like, yes, those are like physical things that we don't need accommodated for that others may need accommodation, but there's also like that those emotional accommodations that we can make for each other when we have the space to do so ourselves. So.
I've never heard of that platinum rule before. That's
me neither. And I will definitely put that in my toolbox.
That's going in the
treat others the way they would like to be
bank.
treated. And it's great too, because even that I feel like should be taken with a grain of salt, right?
Sure.
Because there's a lot of people who think that their number two smells like roses.
Yeah,
right.
and
take
they-
advantage of that
Right.
mindset.
And there's people like me who are like, okay, even in that context, it's like, do I want everybody to be, treating me like I'm some type of God? No. Like,
Sure.
so I'm probably not going to do that for somebody else,
That's the point.
Yeah,
So
with
that's
that
the
like
point.
qualification
That's
of
not the point.
Right, you
within
get what I'm saying.
reason of what even within what is your own capacity and what makes sense for the situation. Like, I
Right.
think the platinum rule really hinges on context.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Knowing the person well enough and also willing, like, to know yourself well enough to know what your boundaries are and to be able, like, I mean, personally, I feel like I was raised through life and through society as a people pleaser. Like, this is something that, like, it took me about a year, maybe 2 years to realize, being a people pleaser is not a good thing, because it means that I'm letting go of my own power, my own agency for someone else, and and that's making a decision for them for what they wanted, and not actually honing into what my capacity is, what my boundaries are, what's safe and healthy for all of us, because a safe and healthy boundary for myself, healthily communicated, is a safe and healthy boundary for someone else. Like, it's for everyone.
And honestly, I identify with that outlook a lot, because up until kind of recently, I also came to the conclusion that I'm also a people pleaser. But I feel like a few years ago, I was pushed a lot by people that care about me to care more about myself. So that's another reason why I realized isolation as a kid is fine, but you can only get there's only so high you can go when you're in a
By yourself. Yeah.
So
So what's the silver rule? Treat people how you want to.
I know.
How you want to.
Yeah. I don't.
Silver rule,
I
treat
don't-
people how you want to. Golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. Platinum rule, treat others the way that they need to be treated.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah. I think like when I first was told like, hey, like stop people pleasing, like could learn this about yourself. I really pushed back because I was really like, no, I'm doing this for both of us, or I'm doing this because like I want to help this person in this way. And I later, learned like, okay, that's my own manipulation, not just of myself, but of others as well. Like it's been an interesting wild ride. And one of the things that has helped me and whether it's, I don't know if it's something that I can say I've implemented every single day, but it's something I enjoy passing along to others is this consideration of, if I'm a people pleaser, how do I people please my future self?
Yeah, please yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder
Treating
if,
your future self as something outside of you.
Yeah.
I got something to that effect. But yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wonder if your resistance to that is part of socialization as a woman, because that's just the assumed natural disposition that women should have, right? Is like you should always be pleasing someone else, whether that's a
Right.
child, a parent, or a spouse, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
it's like, well,
or
that's just
even
natural,
friend
right? But it's like,
or-
wait, no, there
Yeah.
are boundaries that are crossed, even in just normal, acceptable behavior.
Exactly.
And it's like, wait, we got to dial it back to where's the baseline? Where does Ace actually exist and have autonomy versus like the
Doing things for
society's
others.
expectation of
Right.
what Ace should be doing for others? Yeah.
For me, it's also been an exploration of capacity.
That's a good point,
like,
too.
I can only fill others' cups when I've filled my own cup.
Now that should be the golden rule.
Yeah, seriously.
You can't fill anybody else's cup if you're not full, or if you have cracks that you need to work on. You know, those types of things.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah. And I think also like lately it's also been kind of like, oh, I want to help others. But can I truly help anyone or like authentically help when I can't, when I haven't cleaned my water yet? Like, or kind of like, and this kind of gets extrapolated a lot further, but one of our
We're going on
first
the
like,
vessel kind of metaphor here.
yeah, well, and this kind of jumps off a little bit, but we, I think it was like Darian and I's like second really deep conversation. And I think some cannabis was probably involved for me to get to this place. But we were talking about some stuff that we were dismayed about. And Darian was just like, man, it's just it's low hanging fruit there, right? Like, and I kind of turned to Darian and I was like, yeah, but you can really only harvest low hanging fruit with clean hands.
That blew my mind when you said that. Or you should, and maybe even like qualify, you should only harvest low hanging fruit with clean hands, because a lot of people do harvest it with dirty hands, and then that gets dirtier.
Yeah, that's kind of got to be something that I pocket too. Holy crap.
Yeah. I think it's about intention. I think that that phrase is more about like, what is the intention behind, and we are talking a bit about, I think in a broad sense, just to keep it broad here. I think we were talking about DEI. I think we were talking about how nonprofits utilize DEI efforts of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Got it.
And how like, yes, those there's a lot of things to do. There's a lot that varies in terms of like
Because
how
I think
much
we're talking
effort
about a
to put
strategic
in.
plan, and specifically, and there were things that were easy to achieve, and obviously bigger things that could be achieved.
I mean, yes, in DEI, there's easy things to achieve. There's bigger things to achieve. I think even when it comes to before even diving into DEI, it's about like building community but through authentic communication.
Right.
That part.
Yeah. And so if you're, that wasn't happening. So that was part of the washing of the collective hands that I think could have occurred, or even just, intention, having the intention to, all right, if I am embarking down this path of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the cleaning of the hands, the setting of the intention is that building of community through authentic communication. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, you know, cleaning hands at home too, like having that hygiene at home too, whether that's personal research or personal self-development, self-talk, you know, all of that.
All those, yeah.
There's a lot to that, and I like it.
Yeah. I think,
Food for thought.
to add on to your definition of high context, I think the singular is the whole and the whole is the singular.
Oh, absolutely. It's all, it is in the grant, like, yeah, we'll talk about it at some point, but like, yeah, there's this really forward-facing, happy person that people see, and then there's also the other stuff, but like...
'Cause nobody can be happy all the time.
Right, but and now in my life, they all work together. Like, I can't be my happy self without the rest, right? So it's like... A lot of people just look at me and like, oh, well, he's always just blank. And that's the low context, right? But then it's like, oh, well, I do get sad. I do come into a lot of issues that I have to struggle with all the time. But like, it's usually internal. And I'm, you know, so anyway.
To me, what I see is that you are doing and have done work so that you can show up in the way that you do.
And you're getting into the light and shadow sides of just consciousness, right? Like we all have a light and dark side, and you can ebb and flow, and they can both exist at the same time, and you need both to, you know, to be a whole human being. And so I actually have a book about mining the shadows, like gold mining the shadows. And it's really a great book, and it talks about, I don't know if I necessarily believe this to be true, but it talks about your shadow side being your inner child and how that inner child has been harmed numerous times over your life. And those traumatic experiences add up to what are your triggers now, right? So say you had a parent that never listened to you. Now, when somebody doesn't listen to you, that part of you is triggered, and you have some sort of manifestation and a feeling and an emotion, maybe even an outburst. So it talks about going back and speaking, basically, and this is kind of an idea that's out there in psychology now, especially prevalent, but like reparenting your inner child, right? Telling your inner child that it's okay to have those feelings in those moments. And then honestly, it's about discovering the root. Like, was it from a parent, or was it from a friend interaction that you had in middle school, or some teacher in elementary? You know, those types of things start to come out when you look at it as like, oh, this is actually like a tender part of me, not something I should fear, you know, as a shadow.
I see, like, lately, I think, like, honestly, it's like, am I being triggered by the word trigger? And I'm trying to, like, reframe the word trigger into, like, because, like, at the end of the day, like, accepting that we are triggered is part of it, but also accepting that instead of, for myself at least, instead of seeing it as a trigger, seeing it as a challenge. And for at least myself talking to the inner child, I'm saying, like, you're not alone in this. That's
key.
Yeah, that it's like it's okay to have the feelings.
Wow, I think you just convinced me that the difference between a trigger and a challenge is that a trigger sets something off. It sets something off. Like it is. It
reflexive.
Does what its function is to set the thing off. A challenge you have to accept.
Well, a challenge gives you an opportunity to accept.
That's what I mean.
Accept the change.
Yeah, you can reject it too.
Right, you can reject a challenge or accept. That's what I mean.
Exactly. I mean, I think at least when I'm thinking of an analogy for this, triggers are like the flash of an explosion, and a challenge is what am I going to do with this aftermath? And the explosion is, you know, it could be whatever happened, and it could say, that trigger could say, this is someone challenging me, and I know they're doing it with love, and they want me to rise up to this occasion, or this person is triggering and they continue to trigger me, and we've had a conversation about it, and it's not coming from a loving place, and this person is showing me through these explosions that they don't want to be in my life in the way that my self is able to rise up to the occasion, rise up to that challenge.
Yeah. In science, we call it stimulus and response. But I think response isn't necessarily the most appropriate word, because response implies taking a moment, zooming out, what's happening. This person is having an explosion right now that's like making me feel a certain way. But typically in my experience, I don't know about y'all, but like when it's a trigger, it's like almost uncontrollable. Like you can't step out. You don't even, you almost don't even know you're doing it until after it's done. Type of thing. And I think of that as like a trigger where it's like, you pull that string and it's over. Right?
Yeah. So maybe the response is the reaction to the trigger. And the stimulus is what, that trigger is somewhere between the stimulus and the resolve or the response.
That's cool.
So what's getting you high right now? We didn't really get into that yet.
True that. Oh man, I had an answer for this earlier. That's what it is. So I have a background in streaming and doing like online, essentially like taking a production, putting it online so people can enjoy it. And that sounds simple, but I guess the more complicated part about it is before we went on pandemic, I'm just going to put it that way. Before we did that, a lot of the people who were outward performing and like, live bands, this and that, they all immediately were like, oh, we can't perform out anymore? Well, let's stream now, And just before that, a couple of years before that, I just started learning how to stream video games online. So I was learning, OBS, open broadcast software, and, how cameras work and lighting works and mics and this and that. So it was adjacent to...
And it sounds like there's like a lot to navigate on the internet when it comes to actually getting all of that out to the final... consumer.
Exactly.
True.
So you have a bunch of bands like, oh, we can just stream now, but then they're like, oh, well, we need to.
They look like they're in the dark,
or they have no idea where to start. Right.
Yeah.
So I was a really hot commodity at that time, and I loved it. And I was like, this is exactly why I do the things the way I do it. Because like somebody offered me the opportunity to stream video games, and I was like, I like playing video games a lot, but it takes away from other things. Like I can't do some other things when I'm playing video games. So I thought to myself, well, what if I can do both? What if I can learn about lighting and video and all this stuff and play video games? So streaming was the thing. Pandemic happened. Everybody was like, we need to stream. And I was like, I got you, fam. I got you.
The conversation continues. Part 2 of this episode of the High Context Podcast. Stay tuned for more with our side stories, and be sure to connect with us on social media at High Context Podcast on Instagram.